Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I didn't mean to hear it. That's what I kept telling myself afterward, as if the intention mattered, as if overhearing by accident made the words less real or the betrayal less complete. I had left work early that Thursday, one of those rare afternoons when everything aligned and my boss told me to just go home and enjoy the weather. I was looking forward to surprising her, maybe suggesting we grab an early dinner somewhere we hadn't been in a while. I pulled into the driveway and noticed Mrs. Patterson's car was still there. Thursday afternoon coffee, their weekly ritual. I didn't want to interrupt, so I grabbed my briefcase and decided to go around through the side gate, enter through the back door. Give them their time. That's the kind of thing I did. The considerate thing. The thing that kept everyone comfortable. The kitchen window was open. Spring weather, mild breeze. The kind of day where you let the air flow through the house. I was fumbling with the gate lock when I heard her voice, clear as anything, floating out through that open window. Mrs. Patterson said something I couldn't quite catch. Her tone was sympathetic, the way people sound when they're trying to be supportive. And then I heard my wife's laugh. Not the genuine one, the private one I used to know. The other one. The social one. The one that had edges. But he seems like he tries so hard, Mrs. Patterson said. I froze. My keys hung loose in my hand. That's the problem, my wife said. He tries. He doesn't just do. Everything's an effort with him. Like he's constantly behind everyone else, playing catch up. I don't know how much longer I can keep making excuses for him. The keys slipped. I caught them before they hit the concrete, the metal cold against my palm. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. That's harsh, Mrs. Patterson said, but her tone was careful. Not disagreeing, just noting. It's honest, my wife continued. You know it. Everyone knows it. Even his own friends have stopped inviting him to things because he's just not on their level anymore. I backed away from the gate. Slowly, carefully, like if I made a sound, the words would become more real somehow. I got back in my car, started it, drove around the block, ended up in the parking lot of a grocery store 3 streets over, sitting there with the engine running, staring at nothing. 20 minutes passed. Maybe 30. I don't know. Time felt strange, stretched out, and compressed all at once. Eventually, I drove back home. Parked in the driveway like normal. Used the front door this time. Mrs. Patterson's car was gone. My wife was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter. She smiled when she saw me. That normal smile. The one that used to mean something. You're home early, she said. Light day, I replied. And that was it. We moved around the kitchen like dancers who knew the steps by heart. She asked about work. I gave vague answers. She talked about her afternoon. I nodded in the right places. The whole time, those words were sitting between us like a third person in the room that only I could see. I thought it was harmless venting. That's what I told myself that night, lying in bed while she slept beside me. People complain about their partners. It's normal. It's human. Everyone needs to blow off steam. That's what I kept repeating in my mind, trying to make it true. But I couldn't stop thinking about one specific thing she'd said. Everyone knows it. Not, I feel, or I think. Everyone knows. Present tense. Established fact. Which meant this wasn't a private frustration she was sharing with a trusted friend. This was a narrative. A story she'd been telling. A consensus she'd been building. And I had no idea. I started thinking back. Not obsessively, not all at once, but the memories came anyway. Little moments I'd dismissed, awkward encounters I'd explained away, conversations that had seemed strange at the time, but that I'd let slide. 6 months ago, game night at our house. My friends, her friends, the usual mix of people we'd collected over the years. I was telling a story about work, about this problem I'd solved that had been driving everyone crazy for weeks. I was proud of it. I'd figured out this elegant solution that nobody else had thought of. She cut in halfway through. Not loudly, not rudely, just inserted herself into the narrative with that particular skill she had. Tell them what really happened, she said. How your boss had to fix it. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at me. I remember laughing, trying to keep the energy light. I corrected the story. Explained that yes, my boss had given me a nudge in the right direction, but the solution was mine. The implementation was mine. The success was mine. But the moment was already contaminated. I could see it in their faces. The way they nodded, like they were being polite. Like they were indulging me. Like she'd told them the real truth, and I was just trying to save face. I told myself afterward, she's just keeping me honest. She doesn't want me to sound like I'm bragging. She's helping me stay humble. 3 months ago, dinner party. She'd invited 6 of her friends over, and I'd offered to cook. I actually liked cooking, and I was good at it. Not chef level, but competent. More than competent. I'd spent the whole day preparing this meal, something ambitious, something that would impress. When I brought out the main course, she was holding court at the head of the table. I set the plates down, proud of how it had turned out. She looked at the food and then at her friends. I gave him very specific instructions, she announced. We'll see if he followed them. She took the first bite, made a face. Not disgust exactly. Just this slight downturn of her mouth, this tiny shake of her head. Almost, she said. The table laughed. Uncomfortable laughter, the kind that isn't quite sure if it's allowed. I laughed too. Played it off. Because what else was I supposed to do? Make a scene? Defend my cooking like it mattered? I told myself she had high standards. That was good, right? High standards pushed you to be better. But I remember noticing that 3 of her friends barely touched the food after that. As if her verdict was the only one that mattered. The memories kept coming. I couldn't stop them once they started. Running into Mr. Patterson while mowing the lawn last month. He was out getting his mail, and he wandered over, the way neighbors do. We talked about the weather, about the game that weekend, casual stuff. Then he said it. Your wife mentioned you were between jobs. How's the search going? I stared at him. Between jobs. I'd been promoted 2 months earlier. I was running a team of 12 people. I was doing the best work of my career. I'm not between jobs, I said. I got promoted in March. His face did this complicated thing. Surprise, confusion, embarrassment, all at once. Oh, he said. Must have misunderstood. But he hadn't misunderstood. She'd lied. Directly. Deliberately. Told our neighbor I was unemployed when I was actually thriving. And the worst part? I could see him recalculating everything he thought he knew about me. About us. About which one of us was telling the truth. I started counting back after that. How long had this been going on? When did it start? 2 years. That's what I realized. 2 years of this slow, steady erosion. And it had started right after my promotion. Right after I'd moved ahead of her in our respective careers. Right after I'd stopped being the one who needed her advice, her connections, her expertise to navigate my job. The pattern was everywhere once I knew to look for it. Family gatherings. My parents' anniversary dinner last fall. My mother had pulled me aside at one point, had this concerned look on her face. She asked if everything was okay. I told her everything was great. I'd just gotten a major award at work. I was healthy. I was happy. She looked confused. Your wife said you were working through some things. That you were doing better, but still working on the basics. The basics. Like I was recovering from something. Like I was a project she was managing. And my mother believed it, because why wouldn't she? Why would her daughter-in-law lie? Social media was worse. I didn't spend much time on it, but she did. She posted constantly. And in between the pictures of our life, the carefully curated moments that made everything look perfect, there were these other posts. Vague ones. About growth. About patience. About supporting someone through their struggles. The comments would pour in. You're so strong. He's lucky to have you. Not everyone would be so understanding. I'd get messages from old friends. People I hadn't talked to in years. They'd reach out asking if I was okay. If I needed anything. If I wanted to talk. I'd be confused. Assure them everything was fine. And they'd back off with this knowing look. Like they were giving me space to admit the truth when I was ready. She'd made it sound like I was falling apart. Like I was barely holding it together. Like she was the only thing keeping me afloat. And she'd done it so subtly, so carefully, that I hadn't even noticed. Career moments were the clearest examples. Every achievement I shared with her got minimized. Every setback, no matter how small, got amplified and broadcast. I found out from a colleague that she'd told my boss's wife I was stressed about performance reviews. I wasn't. I'd never been stressed about performance reviews. I consistently exceeded expectations. But now my boss thought I was fragile, anxious, someone who needed to be handled carefully. It changed how he talked to me, how he assigned projects. Like he was worried I'd break under pressure. I started to see the architecture of it, the careful construction. Every public space was a stage for my inadequacy. Every social interaction was an opportunity to reinforce the narrative. And she was good at it. She never went too far. Never said anything that was obviously, demonstrably false. Just spun things. Reframed things. Positioned things in a way that made me look smaller than I was. And the worst part? Everyone believed her. Because why would she lie? What possible reason would someone have to systematically undermine their own partner? That's what I couldn't figure out at first. The why. What did she get out of this? What was the point of tearing me down to everyone we knew? And then I realized something that made my stomach turn. If everyone thought I was struggling, they'd think she was generous for staying. And if they thought she was generous, they wouldn't ask the question that might actually matter. Why was I with her? She'd been building a reality where I needed her, where leaving me would be cruel, where she was doing me a favor just by being there. It kept her safe, kept her secure, kept anyone from wondering if maybe, just maybe, I was the one who deserved better. I sat with that realization for a long time. Days, maybe a week. I didn't confront her, didn't say anything, just watched, observed, saw the patterns I'd been blind to for 2 years. And somewhere in that watching, something inside me shifted. I was so tired. Tired of defending myself to myself. Tired of rewriting her narrative in my mind every time I replayed a conversation. Tired of trying to be good enough for someone who was determined to see me as lacking. Tired of fighting a battle I didn't even know I was in. I made a decision. Not a dramatic one. Not a confrontational one. Just a simple shift in perspective. I was done trying to prove her wrong. If she wanted to tell everyone I wasn't good enough, fine. Let her. Let everyone think what she'd convinced them to think. I'd stop fighting it. Stop defending. Stop trying to set the record straight. The relief was immediate and terrifying. Like I'd been holding my breath for 2 years and suddenly remembered I could breathe. The changes started small. Monday morning, I usually left a note on the counter before work. Something encouraging. Something to make her smile. A habit I'd developed years ago, back when those notes meant something. I didn't leave one. My phone buzzed around 10. A text from her. Forget something? No, I replied. That was it. One word. No explanation. No apology. Just acknowledgement that I'd seen her message and chosen not to elaborate. Tuesday evening I came home and went straight to the garage. I'd been building a workbench out there, a project I'd started and stopped a dozen times because there was always something she needed, something more important, something I should be doing instead. She followed me out after 20 minutes. You're not going to ask about my day? I looked up from the wood I was measuring. How was your day? Her face did something complicated. Never mind. The weekend came. Usually I plan something. Date night. Movie. Dinner out. Something to maintain the fiction that we were connected, that we were working on us, that things were fine. I didn't plan anything. Saturday afternoon, she was hovering. I could feel her waiting. Expecting. Finally she asked, "Aren't we doing anything this weekend?" "You can if you want," I said. "Without you?" "Sure." She stared at me. I went back to my book. She left the room. I heard her on the phone later, making plans with friends. Her voice had that edge to it. The sharp one. The next week, there was a gathering. One of those mixed friend groups. People from both our lives who'd somehow become shared over the years. I went because I'd said I would, and I still kept my commitments. She was in the kitchen with 3 of her friends when I arrived. I could hear her voice, that particular cadence she used when she was telling a story. The kind where she was the reasonable one and someone else was the problem. "I keep trying to help him understand," she was saying. "But he just doesn't get it. It's like talking to a wall. I have to explain everything 3 times, and even then." I walked in to get a drink. She saw me, didn't stop, didn't even pause. And even then, he still doesn't quite grasp it. I don't know how he functions at work, honestly. I assume someone else picks up his slack. Usually I'd smile. Play along. Let her have the moment and correct things later, privately, where it wouldn't embarrass her. This time I set my glass down. Looked at her. Looked at her friends. Then I turned and walked out of the kitchen. Got my drink from the cooler outside. Started talking to someone else. She found me 15 minutes later. Her voice was low, controlled. "That was rude." "Was it? You walked away while I was talking." "I did." "Why?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. Saw the calculation in her eyes. She was trying to figure out what I was doing. What game I was playing. How to counter it. "No reason," I said. And walked away again. The next week, I ran into Mrs. Patterson at the mailbox. She had that look. The sympathetic one. The one that meant she wanted to say something, but wasn't sure if she should. "Your wife mentioned you've been struggling with confidence lately," she said carefully. "Just wanted you to know, if you need someone to talk to." Olmi would have explained, defended, clarified the record. Numi just looked at her. "Did she?" Mrs. Patterson nodded. "She's worried about you. We all are." "Interesting," I said. Then I wished her a good day and went back inside. I didn't explain, didn't correct, didn't defend, just left her comment hanging there in the air, unexplained and unresolved. One of her friends had a birthday party the following weekend. Big thing, lot of people, the kind of event where attendance was mandatory. I went. I stayed for exactly 45 minutes. During that time, I watched my wife work the room, watched her laugh, watched her hold court, watched her tell a story about me, about how I couldn't handle social pressure, about how I needed so much help with basic interactions. I was standing 10 feet away. She knew I could hear her. She was looking right at me while she said it. I finished my drink, set it down, walked over to her. "Excuse me," I said, and I left, walked out of the party, got in my car, drove home, didn't text, didn't call, didn't explain, just removed myself from the situation because I didn't want to be there anymore. She came home 2 hours later. I was in the garage, working on the bench. She was furious. "You embarrassed me." "Did I? You just left. Didn't say anything. Didn't tell anyone why." "Should I have?" "Yes. You made me look terrible." I set down the drill, looked at her. "I'm sure you recovered. You're good at talking." Her face went red. She started to say something, stopped, started again. Finally, she just turned and went inside. I heard her on the phone almost immediately. Damage control, explaining to someone why I'd left. I could imagine what she was saying, how she was framing it. I didn't care anymore. The shift was complete. I'd stopped playing defense, stopped trying to correct the narrative, stopped pretending that if I just explained things better, showed people who I really was, they'd see the truth. Let them believe her. Let them think I was struggling, incapable, barely functional. Let them wonder why she stayed. Let her maintain her story. Because here's what I'd figured out. The more I withdrew, the more I stopped defending myself, the more her story started to crack. Not because I was actively fighting it, but because my presence, my actual existence, contradicted everything she'd been saying. We had dinner with mutual friends 3 weeks after the party incident. Couple we'd known for years. They were careful around me at first. Gentle, like I might break. The husband asked about work. Casual question. The kind you ask to be polite. I answered honestly. Told him about the team I was running. The project we'd just completed. The promotion I was being considered for. Spoke clearly, confidently, like someone who was good at their job because I was good at my job. The table went quiet. My wife's face did that thing. The thing where she was trying to figure out how to regain control of the narrative. How to spin what I'd just said into something that supported her version. The wife looked between us. Confused. That's not what we heard," she said carefully. I took a sip of wine. "I'm sure it isn't." And I let that sit there. Didn't elaborate. Didn't accuse. Just acknowledged the discrepancy and moved on. The rest of dinner was awkward. I could see them reassessing, trying to reconcile what they'd been told with what they were seeing. My wife was quieter than usual. Careful, like she was aware, maybe for the first time, that her narrative was starting to show cracks. At home, things changed too. Subtle shifts. I stopped compensating for her version of me. Stopped making myself smaller to make her comfortable. Started existing at actual size. I put my awards back on the shelf in my office. They'd been in a drawer for months. She'd said they made me look insecure, like I needed constant validation. I'd believed her. Put them away. But they were my achievements. I'd earned them. They deserved to be visible. When she was in the room, I stopped downplaying things. Stopped prefacing accomplishments with disclaimers. Stopped apologizing for taking up space. I watched her watch me. Saw her trying to figure out what had changed. What was different? Why her usual tactics weren't working anymore. She escalated. Of course she did. The put-downs became more frequent. More public. More desperate. She'd make cutting remarks at dinner parties, at family gatherings, anywhere there was an audience. Trying to re-establish the narrative. Trying to put me back in the box she'd built. I didn't react. Didn't defend. Didn't engage. Just let her comments fall into silence. At home she'd pick fights. About nothing. About everything. Trying to provoke a reaction. Trying to get me to fight back so she could frame me as volatile, as difficult, as impossible to deal with. "You've become so cold," she said one night. "Okay," I replied. That was worse than arguing. I could see it in her face. The panic. Because if I wasn't fighting to prove her wrong anymore, if I wasn't trying to change her mind, if I wasn't seeking her approval or defending my worth, then the entire dynamic shifted. And she had no idea how to handle that. The breaking point came at a party. One of her friends, someone who'd been witness to years of her narrative, was hosting. Big gathering. Lots of people. My wife was in her element, holding court in the living room, glass of wine in hand. I was in the kitchen, talking to someone about a book we'd both read. Casual conversation. Easy. I was present in a way I hadn't been in years. Not performing. Not managing. Just existing. I could hear her voice from the other room. Louder than it needed to be. Making sure I could hear. I keep trying, she was saying. But there's only so much one person can do. You can't help someone who won't help themselves. The woman she was talking to, someone I barely knew, asked the question. The question that apparently no one had thought to ask before. So why do you stay with him if he's so terrible? Silence. Complete, total silence from the living room. I set down my drink. Walked to the doorway. Stood there where I could see her. She was frozen. Wine glass halfway to her mouth. Staring at her friend like she'd been slapped. I don't. She looked around the room. Everyone was watching her now. Waiting for her answer. That's not what I meant. But you just said. It's complicated, my wife interrupted. You don't understand. I was just venting. The friend looked uncomfortable. It doesn't sound like venting. It sounds like you don't even like him. My wife's eyes found mine across the room. I saw something in them. Fear, maybe. Or recognition. The realization that she'd been caught. That someone had finally asked the question that exposed the entire contradiction. If I was so terrible, why was she with me? And if I wasn't terrible, why had she spent 2 years telling everyone I was? We left 20 minutes later. The ride home was silent. The house was silent. She went to the bedroom. I stayed in the living room. Sat on the couch in the dark. Hours passed. Around midnight, she came back downstairs. Stood in the doorway. I could barely see her in the dim light. You've been sabotaging me, she said. I didn't respond. Making me look like a liar. Turning people against me. You're not the person I thought you were. I stood up. Turned on the lamp. Looked at her directly. No, I said. I'm exactly who I've always been. You just needed everyone to believe I wasn't. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. I was just venting. People vent about their partners. It's normal. For 2 years. I asked. To everyone we know? That's not venting. That's assassination. That's not fair. Fair. I felt something shift in my chest. You told Mrs. Patterson I was unemployed when I'd been promoted. You told my own mother I was struggling with basics while I was winning awards. You told our friends I couldn't handle social pressure, that I needed constant help, that I was barely functional. And you did it casually. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I never said you were nothing. You didn't have to say it directly. You just made sure everyone else thought it. I took a step closer. Tell me something. When you were sitting with your friends, tearing me down, did it feel good? Did it make you feel better about yourself? Her face flushed. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you spent 2 years systematically destroying my reputation to everyone in our lives. And you were good at it. Really good. Subtle enough that I didn't even notice. That's the part that gets me. How calculated it was. I wasn't trying to destroy anything. Then what were you trying to do? She was silent. What was the goal? I pressed. What did you get out of making me look incompetent to the world? Stop it. Why? You never stopped. Not at parties. Not at family dinners. Not even with our neighbors. So tell me what the end game was. What happens when everyone believes I'm exactly as useless as you've been telling them I am? That's not what I was doing. Then what? My voice was steady, calm. That seemed to unsettle her more than if I'd been yelling. Because here's what I think. I think you needed an audience for your martyrdom. You needed witnesses to how much you were sacrificing by staying with me. Poor you. Trapped with this man who can't do anything right. Sink you, making it work despite my obvious inadequacy. That's not fair, isn't it? She moved into the room, pacing now, agitated. I was trying to help you. You needed motivation. You needed. I was already successful, I interrupted. I was already enough. You needed me not to be. She stopped, stared at me. That's not true. Why? Why what? Why did you need me to be struggling? To be inadequate? To be someone who needed you in order to function? She didn't answer, just stood there, arms wrapped around herself. Why? I asked again. I don't have to explain myself to you. Actually, I think you do. Because you've been explaining me to everyone else for 2 years. Explaining how I can't measure up. How I need constant supervision. How I'm barely keeping it together. So explain to me why. You want to know why? Her voice rose. Because you changed. You got that promotion and suddenly you didn't need my advice anymore. Didn't need my connections. Didn't need me to guide you through every decision. So you punished me for succeeding. I didn't punish you. You made sure everyone saw me as failing. That sounds like punishment to me. I made sure people had realistic expectations. She was pacing now, the words coming faster. You were getting cocky, acting like you'd figured everything out. Someone needed to keep you grounded. Grounded? I let the word hang there. Is that what you call it? Telling people I'm unemployed? Telling them I'm struggling with confidence? Telling them I can't handle basic tasks? That's keeping me grounded? You're twisting everything. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just repeating what you said. Your words. To our neighbors, our friends, our family. Should I keep going? Because I remember all of it now. Every casual comment. Every sympathetic story. Every time you positioned yourself as the long-suffering partner dealing with my inadequacy. Stop it. Why? Does it sound bad when it's said back to you? Does it sound cruel? She turned away from me. Look at me, I said quietly. She didn't. Look at me. She turned. Her face was streaked with tears, but her jaw was set. I want you to say it, I told her. Out loud. The real reason. Not the excuse. The truth. Because, she said finally. Her voice was small, quiet, more honest than I'd heard it in years. Because if everyone thought you were struggling, they'd think I was generous for staying. And if they thought I was generous, they wouldn't ask why you were with me. The truth. Finally. You were insecure, I said. Not accusing. Just stating fact. You were succeeding, she said. You were doing well. Better than me. And I was afraid. Of what? That you'd realize you didn't need me. That you'd outgrown me. That you'd leave. So you made everyone think I was the one who was failing. So you'd think you were lucky I stayed, she finished. We stood there in the living room. The truth sitting between us like a third person. Heavy and unavoidable. I didn't realize I was doing it, she said after a long moment. Not at first. But you did. Eventually. And you kept going. Yes. Why? She sank into the chair, covered her face with her hands. Because it was easier than admitting I was afraid. Afraid of what, exactly? That I'd succeed? That I'd be happy? That I'd realize I deserved better than someone who spent 2 years tearing me down? All of it. Her hands dropped. All of it, okay? I was afraid you'd wake up one day and realize you didn't need me. That you'd outgrown me. That you'd leave and everyone would see that I was the one who wasn't enough. So you made them see me that way instead. Yes. The word came out like a confession. Like a relief. Yes. I made you smaller, so I could feel bigger. I made you look weak, so I could look strong. I made you the problem, so no one would look too closely at me. I sat back down on the couch, the weight of it settling over both of us. Do you know what the worst part is? I asked. She looked at me. I would have understood if you'd just told me you were scared. If you'd said you felt left behind. If you'd been honest about feeling insecure. We could have worked on that together. But instead you chose to destroy me quietly. To everyone but me. I know. Do you? Because I'm not sure you understand what you took from me. It wasn't just my reputation. It was my reality. I started doubting myself. Started wondering if maybe you were right. Maybe I was incompetent. Maybe I was barely holding it together. Maybe everyone could see something I couldn't. She was crying now. Real tears. Not the performative kind she used in public. I'm sorry, she whispered. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? I sat back down on the couch. We stayed like that for a while. Not talking. Just existing in the space of what had been said. So what now? I finally asked. She looked up. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. Can we fix this? Do you want to? I don't know. Me neither. The honesty was almost painful, but it was real. Maybe the first real thing that had passed between us in 2 years. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said. But you did. I know. The sun started coming up. Neither of us had moved. Neither of us had slept. What are you thinking, she asked. I was thinking a lot of things. About the 2 years I'd spent trying to prove I was good enough. About the narrative she'd built and the reality she'd created. About everyone in our lives who believed her version of me more than they believed me. About the fact that I didn't hate her. I just didn't need her anymore. Didn't need her approval. Didn't need her validation. Didn't need to prove anything to her or to anyone else. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that I spent so long trying to be enough for you that I forgot I was already enough for me. She nodded, like she understood, like maybe she'd known that all along. I don't know if we can come back from this. I continued. I don't know if I want to try. I understand. Do you? I think so. She paused. You're different now? I'm the same, I corrected. I'm just not trying to be who you needed me to be anymore. The person who needed my approval. The person who was small enough to fit in your narrative. She flinched. But she didn't argue. We sat there as the room got brighter. As the world woke up around us. As the day started like any other day, except everything was different. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we stay together. I don't know if we can rebuild something honest from the wreckage of something that was built on her fear and my accommodation. What I do know is this. I won't be small again. Not for her. Not for anyone. I won't spend my life trying to prove I'm good enough to people who need me to be insufficient. I spent 2 years living in a reality she created. 2 years trying to prove her wrong. 2 years exhausting myself fighting against a narrative I didn't even know existed. The day I stopped trying to prove her wrong, everything changed. Not because I won. Not because she lost. But because I finally understood something fundamental. I was never the one who needed proof. She kept telling everyone I wasn't good enough. And the day I stopped caring whether they believed her, I became free.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.